2 years ago, today, I released a video about the game Boneworks. And I consider this to kind of be my last full video that I've made for a while due to many reasons, none of which I'm going to really go into. So I thought, well, wouldn't it be fun if I made a Bone Lab video as my way to return, since that's the sequel to Boneworks. And this video has taken me a while because I had an obligation that, well, kind of took up most of my time. Like, right when I decided to do this video, I kind of started writing the script and got some of the footage, but I never really got far with it until, like, in the last 2 weeks when I finished recording all the footage I needed and then finished writing the bulk of the script. So now I'm going to actually start talking about the game instead of giving excuses for where I was. Bone Lab was released on September 29th, 2022. It was released for Quest 2 and PC VR. Now, unlike the last video where I kind of gave a quick rundown of who Stress Level 0 is, I don't need to do that. Yeah, kitty. Because I already did that. I already told you who Stress Level 0 is and what games they've made. And obviously, they've made Boneworks, which I'm going to probably be referencing that review a lot. Because, I mean, it's my thoughts on the game. Public thoughts on the game. So, yeah. The game was really hyped. Now, this was for multiple reasons, one of which being the inclusion of Quest 2 support. All other Stress Level 0 games were only on PC VR, because that's really only what could support their games. But now with the Quest 2, which had a much more powerful processor than the Quest 1, it was able to run Bone Lab, and they designed Bone Lab around being for Quest 2, kinda. You can kind of see it in the game. There's a little bit of reduced scale compared to Boneworks, but it still has the same physics, still has same run around everything. Gameplay-wise, it's just some of the level design was changed up. It's impressive. Now, another reason it was so hyped up is because of the promise of official mod support. Modding is something that became very popular later into the life cycle of Boneworks. Probably after the last update even came out is when I started seeing a lot of people do modding. A lot of those videos have gotten popular. Boneworks kind of became the Gmod of VR because it was so easy to mod and to add on to it because of how fun the physics system is. So Stress Level 0 took this as a chance to add that officially. And something crazy about the game is nothing massive was really revealed about it until there was a trailer released 6 days before the game came out. I remember at the end of this trailer, they said the release date, Thursday. Yes, this Thursday. I remember I was like, oh wow, it's already coming out. That's really cool. And it is really cool. I thought that was just really neat that they were releasing it so soon. I made a really dumb mistake here. There was a trailer released long before the release date trailer. Though that trailer was pretty cryptic, it had a couple small details like revealing the lab and everything. But when the release date trailer came out, it wasn't called, or well, it was called the release date trailer, but nobody was really expecting it to be 6 days. So that was the shock. Expectations were extremely high, and people ended up being disappointed on launch. People thought the single player was lacking and confusing, especially story-wise. People thought the mod support wasn't enough. But for me, I was really just expecting Boneworks again, with kind of improved physics, maybe a little bit, and kind of just Boneworks again with different content. And that's what I got. But I'll talk about my full thoughts on the game, obviously, because this is a full-length video. So, let's go into that. At first glance, the gameplay is extremely similar to Boneworks, because it is. But there is one major addition added that kind of shakes up gameplay, and that's the body log. The body log allows you to swap between different avatars on the fly by just pulling a cord that's available on your wrist. Or not your wrist, more like your mid-arm section. Now, there are 6 different avatars with the body log. The first one is the fast avatar, which is an overall pretty balanced avatar. I'd say it's the most balanced out of all of them. Faster speed, kind of lighter weight compared to some other ones. Overall, it's very balanced. Next one is the strong avatar. He's kind of slower, kind of bigger, but he is definitely stronger. He has big arms. You know, he can punch things. Be strong, man. I didn't really use this guy that much. Next up is the heavy avatar. The heavy avatar is used in very specific situations. Just a really chunky guy, really strong, really heavy. You know, used to move like big boulders. You can kind of just pick up enemies and throw them around if you really want to. That's fun to do. Again, I really only use this guy when needed. Next up is the light avatar. It's the anime-made avatar. I don't know why they put this in the game, but sure. She's really light and really fast, but not very strong at all. I never used her in the campaign, I'll be honest. Next up we have the short avatar. He's short. Enough said. You do need him, sometimes. Next up is the tall avatar. He's tall. Why don't all of these explain themselves? Give them fun names, come on. Again, he is needed for some puzzles, so I did definitely use him. One thing I would really like to see is if they made it so that there were puzzles where you were forced to use a specific avatar. So like you walk into an area and there's like a sign that says like only this avatar may enter, and then you walk through it, it's like a force field, and like forcefully changes your avatar to that, similar to how it does for the mini games when you first play them, and then you can't switch from there. And my idea is that it's kind of an area where it's difficult to navigate with that avatar, so it really forces you to be well-rounded with every avatar and to learn about their challenges and strengths, and to really learn how to utilize it and how to overcome the challenges you may have using a specific avatar. I think that would have added a lot of depth to the campaign, but I mean, it's fine it wasn't included. I enjoy the little puzzles sprinkled throughout where you need to switch to an avatar, but most of the time I just kind of use the same avatar because that's just easiest. I don't really see myself switching avatars for every situation. Maybe people do. And those people, awesome, great, but that's not what I did. And this is my video, so who cares? Now, there's a handful of new guns added into the game. Most notably, shotguns! Finally! But there's really not anything else added. There's some cool guns. I don't even know if they're in the campaign. I think they're just in Sandbox. But they're like... I didn't use them, actually. But they look cool. They look cool. Yeah, well, I would have loved to see a sniper rifle added. Especially with the way this game plays, especially with being more closed off compared to Boneworks, I don't really see a use for a sniper rifle. I think the normal scoped assault rifle works fine for long range stuff like that. Now, level design in this game, it's pretty similar to Boneworks in some areas. I'd say the combat and indoor sections are like the same as Boneworks. A lot of the areas kind of remind me of like Tower, almost like the closer sections in Tower. Remind me of kind of the indoor sections of Streets. Maybe the more closed off sections of Runoff. But one thing you will notice is that there's no grand set pieces like Boneworks. And this kind of makes me feel like I'm missing something from the game. Because the thing I loved about Boneworks was being in Runoff and looking out the window and seeing the whole level. Being in Tower, looking up and seeing the massive tower you have to climb. Being at the end of the game and seeing the massive building you have to climb to win. That's not here in Bone Lab, and I thought that was a really cool piece of Boneworks, was seeing those massive set pieces that just really put into perspective how big you are in the game, how much you have to travel in the level. In this game, it's all closed off. You don't really have a good sense of progression, actually. You just kind of keep going until you hit a loading zone. In Boneworks, even though it was kind of not clear what you were doing, it was still clear where you had to go and where you were going and how much progress you were making. But in Bone Lab, it just kind of feels like you just keep moving and keep moving and keep moving and keep moving until you hit a loading zone and know you went the right way. And there is another complaint I have. So, in Boneworks, there was a mode where you could play sitting. And that was great for some people. The only person I've ever seen use that is Matt Pat. I don't know why, but he did play the game sitting down, I guess. But that's a great option, obviously, for people who have closed off spaces to play VR. They don't have a big space, or maybe standing up would make them too sick to play, something like that. So what they did in Bone Lab was add that option by default. So it's not as bad as it sounds, but you can play the game standing still. But if you try to physically crouch, your character will go back standing up. This makes me more motion sick. The way I played Boneworks was that I physically crouched every single time because that's what immersed me in the game. That's what made me feel like I was a part of the game. That's what made me feel like I was actually playing correctly. But in this game, you have to use the virtual crouch with the thumbstick to crouch, and that's dumb. I understand why they added that feature, so if you're going into a go-kart, you can easily sit down and you can stand back up easily, but make that an option. Don't force that. Allow me to play the game like I played your last game. I shouldn't feel like I'm going backwards. God, sorry. I shouldn't feel like the movement system is going backwards from the first game. I thought the movement system was great in the first game, and they didn't really make many changes besides that. And I think that's just a really dumb change to me. Short-sighted to not even give an option to turn that off. I mean, besides that, though, the game plays nicely. I will be honest. I've gotten used to virtual crouching. It isn't as big of a problem as I make it out to be. It's just something that really annoys me on a personal level. So I don't think that's really going to be a massive issue with this game. I've never heard anybody else complain about that. Apparently there's a mod to fix it on PC, but I don't have it on PC, and Melon Loader sucks to get working, so whatever. We're going to get to modding later. Now, of course, what are you playing? I can talk about the movement and combat systems all I want, but what are you doing? So first, I'll go over the game modes, because as with Boneworks, Bone Lab has multiple game modes to play through. The first being Tactical Trial. I think this is most comparable to the Handgun Trial from Boneworks. So it just has a lot more structure and more options. There's more maps to choose from, there's multiple difficulties, you can choose from multiple weapons, and it has its own leaderboards, it has its own place in the menu. I think it's just overall a lot better structured than Handgun Trial, and I like the way, in general, that the other game modes are structured. That they have their own buildings, that you can access them a lot easier than Boneworks, where you had to hunt for the little capsule things that you had to put into the main menu. I thought that was dumb. But the way that this game does it, it's really intuitive. You don't even have to unlock anything. You basically have everything right from the start. It's great. The second is Arena. And again, it's very similar to Boneworks. This is also where Zombie Warehouse is located. I like Zombie Warehouse. I don't know, the modes in this game are different and they're kind of confusing, but I still enjoy Zombie Warehouse, so that's one option. And then you have the Fantasy Arena, which it's the classic Fantasy Arena. That's the go-to for me. Fantasy Arena is so much fun. I love all the challenges they have. I love the option of enemies. It doesn't feel borked at all by being on Quest 2 or by being in this game. And then the next option is Magma Gate, which is actually one of the campaign levels. I guess that works as an arena. I understand why they put that in there. So I'll get into how the campaign is structured, but these levels that I'll talk about that are campaign levels, they all have their leaderboards, and every single thing that I'm about to talk about here that's like a challenge, those all have leaderboards that you compete with your friends and on a world basis. I think that's a cool idea. Oh, and then there's Tunnel Tipper, which is just really weird and confusing. It's like indoor, has all these winding tunnels and paths. I don't even think I went through half of it playing it. It's really neat though. I'm imagining once you actually learn the layout of the place, it is a really fun map to play. I just could not wrap my head around it. The third mode is Parkour. Actually brand new to this game. Boneworks didn't really have an equivalent besides the challenges you do to unlock stuff. So, parkour includes the Sprint Bridge level, which is a part of the campaign. It has Dungeon Ninja, which is weirdly enough a medieval take on American Ninja Warrior. I don't know, it's pretty fun though. I liked it. And then you have Rooftops, which takes place on probably the most open-looking map in the entire game, and I love it. It looks beautiful. And then Neon District Parkour. I don't really have anything to say about that map. It's kind of boring. I didn't even play it to record footage, I'll be entirely honest. I've played it before, and I didn't really like it. It's just a really fun way to mess with the movement system, I'll be honest. Now, the fourth mode is Experimental, and this is probably the weirdest mode in the game. So, it has 3 maps. It has a mirror room, which has a mirror. That is literally all you can say about it. And then you have Baseline. It's a really basic sandbox that reminds me of the one sandbox from Boneworks, but you can't control the lighting. And then you have probably the most feature-filled experimental map, Big Bone Bowling. It's a bowling alley! I love it! I love that! You can use the utility gun to like launch balls. Oh my god, I love it. It's so cool. It is actually so cool. I love it. That's such a cool idea. And I wish they did more stuff like this with this mode. That's it. That's all there is in Experimental. And it's just so strange to me because it makes me think, why not just toss these maps into Sandbox? Oh, I forgot also Pillar Climb from the campaign. Again, it's just thrown anywhere because they don't know where to put it. This isn't experimental. This is just miscellaneous. And I'd be fine if they changed the way it was worded. But when I saw experimental in the trailer, I thought, okay, well, this is going to be to like test new features, or these are going to be like really weird maps that push the limits of what you can do with the game that the devs didn't really want to risk putting in the other modes. But it's just throwaway maps that could have been in Sandbox, and it makes me really sad to see because I really like Big Bone Bowling. I like the ideas of having like dumb little maps like that. I think that could have been expanded upon. Make little game modes to play with the physics. That's fun. Or make better Sandbox maps, please. Make more and better Sandbox maps. I don't know why didn't port Null Chamber over. I'm not even in the Sandbox yet. I'm going to wait to rant about this once I get to Sandbox. But yeah. Experimental is the weirdest mode in this game, and it's pretty unnecessary. I like what's included. I think if you're a content creator, you'll especially like the mirror maps and baseline maps, but I just don't see a purpose to having it be a separate mode. Coming off of that, next is Sandbox. I like Sandbox. Sandbox is basically the same as Boneworks. You know, grab your utility gun, spawn a couple of null bodies, absolutely brutalize them. Just some different maps included. Not all the maps from Boneworks are included, which makes me sad because I like the Sandbox maps in Boneworks a lot. Like, a lot. They were really fun. But however, there's a big new addition in this version of Sandbox, and I actually don't know the official name. But you know how the tool gun in Gary's mod, depending on what you're doing, you can either spawn stuff or weld? Well, we've had the spawning with a gun in this game, but we haven't had the like welding and utility aspect of it. Well, in this game we have that, and I actually don't know everything it can do, but it can do a whole lot. There's a whole lot of different modes, but me, I just messed around with welding a little bit, and I made this thing. And you can see me terrorizing an innocent castle with my creation. I think it's cool that they took steps to make it more similar to Gmod, because that was a mod for Sandbox. I think it's cool seeing them do that. I wish, though, that they kept all of the Sandbox maps from Boneworks. I don't see why they couldn't have. I mean, I understand Hover Jumpers. Hover Jumpers is a massive map. But things like the Handgun Trial, the Null Chamber, like, those are great maps. They were fun. They had that sandbox element as well as having a gameplay and exploration element. I thought they were really unique and really fun maps to play, but they just weren't added for some reason, and I wish they were. But, I mean, overall, Sandbox has a lot more possibilities than Boneworks, especially considering. So it's time to talk about the reason why this game got so much attention, why it got so hyped, and why overall it was kind of a disappointment to a lot of people. Modding. So, the unique thing about modding that Brandon revealed is that it would be on Quest 2 and PC, which I think is really cool. I was thinking, well, how are you going to do that? Because you can't just have the mod browser, or else the game will be taken down for copyright, or they wouldn't allow copyright access. And I was worried that downloading mods on Quest 2 would have the limitation of having to be approved mods. But that's not the case at all. So literally what you do is you download the mod, and then you plug in your headset to the computer, and then you drop it into your Bone Lab mods folder. That's it. You're done. Once you load up the game, that mod will be installed, and you can play it however you want. That's awesome. It's so easy to do, and on mods.io, they have basically anything you want. All different types of maps, all different types of avatars, all different types of weapons. It's awesome. I love it. So everything you can add for modding, you can add custom maps, you can add custom avatars, you can add custom weapons, and you can add custom NPCs. And that's about as far as it goes, which is a little bit disappointing, but I understand. Code mods would be difficult to implement for Quest as well as PC. So if you want to mess with code mods, there's still Melon Loader for PC, or you can download Lemon Loader for Quest. I tried that, it didn't work. I don't have access to anything Windows right now, so I could not download Lemon Loader, sadly. Yeah, modding is a little bit underwhelming if you were expecting a lot from it, but I think modding is implemented really well. It does what it needs to. It gives you the option to add extra things. It lets you kind of explore your creativity. For me, I really enjoyed that a modder added the map Construct. Construct is my all-time favorite sandbox map. It's a classic. I don't think that's a hot take by any means, but I really love that someone took the time to implement it. So I was able to kind of mess around, and you can see, like, I was trying out some custom weapons. Fun mod. I love it. It's a good time being able to mess around with that kind of stuff. And even cooler, there's a project that aims to recreate the entirety of Boneworks in Bone Lab, even for Quest 2. That's awesome. They already have what I think is probably one of the more intensive levels, Runoff, added. So there's only really one more challenge, and that's Tower. I'm interested to see if Tower will be able to run on Quest, but I guess we'll see what happens. But I think there's another aspect of this game that I haven't touched on yet. That's important. Oh. The campaign is probably the strangest part of the game. I mean, the story is arguably more confusing than Boneworks, and that's an achievement if I've ever heard one. Jesus Christ, Boneworks was confusing if you didn't know, and this game is even more confusing, honestly, but it has a simpler story once you know it. So I'm just going to give a general rundown of the story, and then I'll go more in depth. So, first off, you play as yourself. Oh my god, this is already confusing. So you play as yourself in this game. So there's a concept introduced in Boneworks that the idea is that you going into VR is you transferring your consciousness into a virtual body, which usually is yourself. But in this game, you're transferring to the body of a peasant that is being hung. And your goal throughout the game is to make your way through what remains of MythOS to ascend to the void. Okay, so now, if you really care about spoilers, I'm going to go in depth about the campaign in its entirety. Well, not really in depth, but I'm going to be talking about kind of the campaign in general as a whole, as well as the story. So, if you don't want to hear that, then skip to the next chapter, because I'm going to make chapters for this video. So, like I said, you're transferred into the body of a peasant. You're being hung for something. I actually don't know what it is. You're being hung for something. But a magical knife appears out of thin air, and then you cut yourself free from the noose. You fall into a giant pit with no fall damage, because like Boneworks, Bone Lab doesn't have any fall damage. And you kind of make your way through these old tunnels that slowly gain more technology until you make your way up to MythOS. From here, you go into an elevator that breaks and then makes its way to the Bone Lab hub. From here, there's a lot of different things, obviously, but you kind of just make your way straight to the quarantine door if you want to actually progress in the story. That's pretty important to me, actually progressing. Then you hear a guy on a radio that's talking about the abandoned stress level 0 offices. Yes, they inserted themselves into the game. Again. So you make your way down to the abandoned stress level 0 offices, and you find a giant plug, like a comically large drain plug, because the office is just in a sink for some reason. Don't ask me why. It's never explained. And you pull the plug up, and then you go down, and you go down, and it's like runoff. It is really a lot like runoff. So I think first before I go further, I want to explain something. So there's Lava Gang, which has no relevance to what I'm on right now. But the entire thing with Lava Gang is they accessed the Void before Arthur Ford. And what they do is they are people they're exploiters, they're glitchers who take advantage of the Void for good purposes. And there's some kind of mysterious threat in the Void. And you are trying to join Lava Gang to help with that threat. And the way you join Lava Gang is just by making your way into the Void. That's it. So anyways, you make your way through these like runoff passages, and you just kind of keep going and keep going and keep going and keep going until you make your way to an abandoned amusement park ride. Why not? Yeah, this section's weird. It's really good looking, but I don't know why they introduced it. There's barely any gameplay here. You could literally just go into the cart, set your headset down, and you complete the chapter. Whatever. It's cool. But kind of as you reach the end, you slowly see more signs that don't really fit at all with the mining aesthetic. And what happens at the end is that you get sucked up into some kind of void thing, and then loading screen. And now you're in a section called Big Anomaly. I don't know why it's called this, honestly. There really isn't any form of anomaly in this section. You're kind of fighting through hallways. This is the section that reminds me a bit of Tower. This is cool. I like the way you're fighting through these hallways and everything. And then you meet a big man who gives you a body log. Or, my character already has a body log. He gives you a body log and tells you to fill it up. So you go to fill it up. So you play 6 mini games to get all 6 avatars. There are 6 different avatars, as I mentioned before. So first, you play Street Puncher to get the strong avatar. And then you play Sprint Bridge to get the fast avatar. Now, I really love this level. This level has like a Half-Life 2 aesthetic to it. It's really neat. And then you play Magma Gate to get the heavy avatar. And then you play Moonbase to get the short avatar. It's honestly the most boring out of these levels, but it's still really fun. And you play Monogon Motorway to get the fast avatar. And I hate the car physics in this game. I hate how they work. They make me sick. But I soldiered through to get this footage. And then Pillar Climb to get the tall avatar. I honestly really love Pillar Climb. I think Pillar Climb's really fun. So once you have all the avatars, you're sent back to the hub with a silver key, and then next you have to play every single side mode in the hub. I think I forget if you need to do that or not actually to access the quarantine door. I think you do, but you play every game mode in the hub, and then you move their gravity cores to the little podium things by the crane, and you use the crane to move them there. This sounds like a fever dream, I'll be honest. And now you can finally access the mysterious Bodyworks door, which we saw in the trailer. And yeah, you just break the Boneworks tray, and then you're sucked up into the ceiling for kind of no reason. And now you just have like a bunch of different little like puzzles and run through things to do, various combat sections. Just kind of, again, like I said, there really isn't a structure to this. It's just big levels that you make your way through until you can't anymore. So it's difficult for me to give a comprehensive rundown of the campaign when it's just kind of like, yeah, you keep going, but you keep going until you reach Fantasyland, which was actually teased in Boneworks. You see part of Fantasyland in Boneworks, but you see even more of it in Bone Lab, and it's where you started off. So, I think this takes place after Boneworks. I'm actually not too sure, because in Bone Lab, we see that Fantasyland is up and running. There's something happening. So, where we started the game, where you get hung, that's the village that we go to in Fantasyland, and they recognize us somehow, even though we look entirely different. I don't know how, but they then want to kill us, and you just kill everybody, because obviously you have guns. Obviously it's going to be really easy, you have guns. They even give you an AK in the level, come on! This isn't fair! And then you make your way through until the ending, when you see a windmill with a finger that stops it, which was foreshadowed by a poster earlier. I don't even know if I'm going to have footage of that or be able to show a picture of it, but I could try. And you ride up on Jimmy's finger, which is the big guy that we met earlier, and the most cathartic music possible ever plays during that. And then you're finished. And then you drive in a taxi and listen to a really good cover of Don't Fence Me In. Stress level 0. Stop making your story so weird. I'm sorry. I love your games. I even love the story of Boneworks, but it's weird to understand. This game's even weirder. It just... The worst part is it doesn't work. I feel like Boneworks worked a lot better because of the way the game was structured. But the way this game was structured, I don't think the story works as well. I really don't. I want to love the story of this game as much as I do Boneworks. I think Boneworks is a really unique take on a VR game, being a VR game. But then they tried to do that again, but made it more complex and weirder to understand. Like in Boneworks, it was, oh, you're playing as Arthur Ford, and you're going to this operating system to exploit it and get somewhere you shouldn't be. But everybody doesn't know that's what you're doing, and they think you're innocent and talk to you like that. It's interesting, and you learn by the end what's happening. It is structured like a story, even if it's kind of cryptic. But in Bone Lab, you're just kind of moving. And the basic story is, well, you transfer into the consciousness of somebody, but you're playing as yourself. You're trying to move up into the void through these levels, and you gotta like play these like mini game levels to get the avatars, and you swap between them. It's just like the story doesn't make sense compared to Boneworks. It makes sense still, but makes less sense than Boneworks. I think I just like the story better in Boneworks. Now it's time to get onto something I can praise. So, if you remember, I really love the music in Boneworks. I still do. I still listen to it every once in a while. Man, I thought that music was perfect for that game, even if it isn't the most substantive stuff on its own. I think it's still really fun music to listen to. So Bone Lab obviously got a new OST, same composer. So I want to talk about that because, I mean, you've been hearing the music from that OST throughout the video. I love the music in this OST. So let's talk about it. So first off, you have the normal kind of synthwave leading songs that Boneworks has. A couple examples of this are Hall Vortex, Fabric of Reality, and I guess something like Everyday Castle could be kind of classed in with that. But we do have a lot more variety in this. So for instance, there's a lot more songs with vocals. In Boneworks, it was really only like 2 songs. It was Put It Down and Opera de Ossium. But in this game, there's songs like Would You Even Know, Dream World, Take a Ride, and Turn Around, which are all great songs. I think all of the songs on this OST are great, honestly. They're well composed, they're fun to listen to. But there's 2 songs that really stand out. The Great Journey and the Grand Journey. This is like almost or actually prog rock. These songs are 8 and 10 minutes long respectively. What? I just, like, that's not something I would have ever expected from this OST, but it's done really well. I love it. The Grand Journey plays in the ending with Fantasyland, and it works really well. I'm just shocked that there's songs like that in an OST for this kind of game. I love this OST. I love it a ton. I think the music is great. I think it's well done. I think all of it is wonderful to listen to. There is one thing though. So, despite this OST being better musically, in my opinion, I think I like Boneworks better in terms of it fitting the game. With this game, it feels like a lot of really good music was made, and then it was fit into the game. But with Boneworks, it felt like music was made to fit the game that was really solid. And for me, the latter resonates with me more. When I kind of hear a song that perfectly encapsulates what I'm doing, and then I remember that, and I listen to it not just for the music, but to remember the feelings I had when I played it. And that happens with me a lot more in Boneworks. See, Bone Lab, I think there are a couple songs like that, but it just happens so much less. I think the music in Boneworks just perfectly intertwines with the gameplay and the settings that you hear the music in. Like, for example, Ambient Travel being the default sandbox song, like, that's perfect. I don't think default, but at least in the museum basement, it's the default song and it just fits so well. It's just this beautiful song that's just really ambient. It really works in the background. It's calming, but it's notable. I love it. But in Bone Lab, it just doesn't feel like there's songs that mesh as well with the gameplay. So for that, I prefer the Boneworks OST. That's just me though. I think if you're someone who maybe watches Boneworks and likes the music, or not Boneworks, if you're someone who maybe like watched a little bit of Bone Lab, but you like the music, I think this OST is going to appeal to you more than if you watched a little bit of Boneworks and wanted to go check out the music. I think it works better on its own than with the game, honestly. But I still love the OST. I cannot get that across enough, that I love this OST. It's just I prefer the Boneworks one. I'll be honest, I have no clue how long this video is going to be. I kind of just sat down and rambled with some notes over here. So one thing I kind of noticed when I was writing all of this is I was kind of like, I really liked how Bone Lab did this. It's really fun, it's really good, but I still kind of prefer the way Boneworks did it. And that reigns true for my overall thoughts. Bone Lab is a really fun game. If it's your only option and you do not have access to a PC to play Boneworks, this is not bad. This isn't even like a substitute. This is a great game. I'm not even going to like try to downplay it at all. But me personally, I like Boneworks better. There's just something missing from Bone Lab that I love about Boneworks, and I can't tell what it is. I don't know if it's just maybe the time I played Boneworks, or if it's just me enjoying the story and the sets of Boneworks better, but there's just something missing from Bone Lab, some character that Boneworks had in spades. So, I'll always prefer Boneworks, but Bone Lab is one damn good sequel.